The time too, at that time, when they asked us to devalue the currency, we were asked to devalue our currency so that we can attract foreign investors. That if you devalue your currency, it will make the foreign investor, it will make them bring in less money because your money will be devalued against theirs, so it will create an avenue for them to want to come to the African continent to come and invest. But that was not the plan. The plan was to make Africa a market, just a marketplace.
To make Africa a marketplace.
Yes,
I asked the question. Yes. I asked the question. Were you in this country when the credit lines were blocked? 1984, 85? Were you here 1982, 83 when the debate was on about IMF loan?
I was here.
You were here.
Yes.
You were here, therefore, when the credit lines were blocked. No nation, no country, the creditors were not ready to do business with the country. Were you here?
Yes, I was. I was here.
Was that not the reason? Was that not part of the reason for freeing the economy, for having a short-term measure to this thing?
Yes, it was supposed to be for a short measure, maybe for 2 years. They introduced structural adjustment program for 2 years, 86 to 88. But eventually, successive governments continued, and it was mismanaged. I'm not saying it was a bad policy,
right,
but it was mismanaged at the end of the day. It only benefited a few individuals. It didn't benefit the total masses of Nigeria.
Populace,
yeah.
Okay. We're getting somewhere. We're getting a middle ground, aren't we?
Okay.
You also talked about radical economists. You mentioned, and I've been acquainted with some of them, you know, in my time here in Nigeria and also in universities abroad. You mentioned Professor Sam Aluko.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity to interview him in his country home at the time in the 80s, and he said to me, to a question I asked him, that if the Naira falls, it can rise. I remember that vividly. My question to you now is, how can the value of the Naira be strengthened?
Well, I had said that earlier on. You can strengthen the value of the Naira by starting with the presidential fiat. You can restrict what is coming to your country. All these imported fruit juice that the government now has brought up a policy that they want to now stop from coming in. Whatever we can produce in Nigeria, jam, cornflakes, soap, toothpaste, toothpicks, we don't have to import this. When you import this, it puts pressure on the foreign exchange. The demand for the foreign exchange is too much. And when you have too much money in circulation, too much demand, too much Naira chasing the few foreign exchange we have, then it devalues our currency, causes inflation.
What about earning? I was taught, you know, less import, you know, and more export. That is to say,
more export.
Earning more foreign exchange, other than
more foreign exchange, but
depending on the sale of oil all the time.
I know.
Why don't you advocate that? Why not?
I have said that if we start producing here, we can start producing all the locally made consumable goods that we consume. Then, if the market is large enough, we can now go for export. Some of the things we make in Nigeria, Omo is being exported to some of the West African countries and all these other places. Doing mat goes to all the West African countries. They sell the mat out, they export. But even though people say we're not producing, we are producing oil. We might not be production-based, but we are producing oil. And if we manage the oil very well, it can become a money spinner for everybody. But the management of the oil has not, the oil has not been managed properly because it has been allowed to fritter away. The benefits, it hasn't reached the masses of the country. It hasn't touched many areas. You can see the problem in the Niger Delta. The area has been neglected for such a long time. This oil has just been circulating in the oil money has been circulating in the hands of our leaders.
What are you advocating now? What are you suggesting to the next administration that's going to come in?
I am suggesting that we go back to a regulated economy. Not a very
with the exchange controls in place again.
Not as radical as that. It will be relaxed, but it has to have some form of regulation. There is no country in the world that does not regulate its economy. Even America, they regulate the economy. There was a time in the 80s when Honda cars were being imported into America, exported out from Japan to America. And then the American government felt threatened because the American cars at the time, their designers hadn't gotten the know-how to build small, attractive vehicles. And so the American public were buying more of imported cars, smaller, fuel-efficient cars. But the American government now saw it was affecting the American industry, the motor industry, General Motors, Ford, and the others. And so they now told the Japanese government that they must allow a certain percentage of American cars to come into Japan before they will allow the continued importation of Honda vehicles. Also, when you look at the WTO, AGOA, and all these Uruguay round, you see that America always has some kind of safeguards. Tariffs are put on imported goods into their country, like the one on the put 30% import tax on steel from importers from outside the country, steel coming from Europe into America. They put 30% to discourage imports into America and to promote their own steel industry. Also, if you look at the textile industries, they're protecting their own industry in America. They don't allow African textiles to go into America. And yet they're asking for free trade, liberalization, and all that. Also, when you look at the Farm Bill, the government in America has always given subsidy to the farmers in America. So whether there is a problem anywhere, they always give them subsidies to cushion the effect of any disaster or anything like that. So America regulates its economy. Britain regulates their economy. And that's why Britain today will not join the European Union with the common currency.
You do not reckon, Mr. Adelu, that, or you haven't read that there are some policies in place to regulate the economy in certain sectors. In agriculture, for instance, in the industrial sector, for instance, no? Recently, they banned toothpicks and things like that.
That was just recent.
Yeah, no, but I think government have, I mean, I don't know about the military era, but you know, this time around, since last year, I've been reading. Since I came back, I've been reading, and I know that there are some policies in place.
It's just taking effect.
It has
just... It's just started to take effect.
All right. But you know that the policies are in place, that the economy...
Some of the policies are in place.
The economy is not just open to all sorts of imports.
Well, not in every area. Not in every area. I agree with you. Not in every area. President Obasanjo is doing some of those things already. Because it takes... If you had been a military president, it would have been faster. You will have seen the results of his administration.
I'm not advocating.
I'm not advocating for that.
Thank you very much.
As a civilian, it takes some time.
Let's talk about something else. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the economy over and over again. You also picked issues with the question of brain drain.
Yes.
Now, a huge chunk of the foreign exchange earnings of some countries are derived from the export of their citizens, the services of their citizens who work in other lands.
Yes.
I'll give you examples of the Indians and the Philippines.
Yes.
They get a huge chunk of their national foreign exchange from the export of their citizens. So what's wrong in people venturing to greener pastures and sending the dollar and the pounds back home?
Well, the problem was that once they had devalued the currency, and it had affected the middle class, it affected the middle class structure, and it didn't make the economy attractive. It didn't make the Nigerian society attractive for any graduate to want to work in the economy, because they felt with this kind of salary, which was 1,500 minimum before it was increased to 3,500 and then 5,000 and then 7,500, that money could not buy anything. And when you went to the embassies at the time, they just looked at you, even you are a civil servant, a top-ranking civil servant, they just felt, oh, he earns only $50 equivalent, a paltry sum. That they were not ready to give people visas. And that's why they were rejecting people visas at the embassy. And then because of the devaluation, people who had gone for scholarships abroad to school and those who had sponsored themselves refused to come home. Come home to what? Where the economy had been, currency had been devalued? What would it be able to buy? When brand new cars are going for 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, up to 7 million. Even some cars are 14 million. This was not the system before. Having more money does not mean, carrying more naira does not mean you have more money. We are buying petrol today for 1,000 naira to fill most of the 4-liter cars, 4-cylinder cars. 10 years or 15 years ago, 10 naira will fill your tank. Today, we're not spending 1 naira coins anymore.
Mr. Adelu, let's go on a break, and while you reminisce on the good old days, right? Okay. Let's go on a break, and then we come back. You're still watching One-on-One on 98.2 Channel 5. Our special guest today is Mr. Adebayo Adeolu. He's a businessman and a political scientist. Mr. Adeolu, I asked you.
Yes, you're talking about
what have you got against the brain drain?
Well, I don't feel everybody wants to leave Nigeria and go and live abroad. But I felt that once the currency had been devalued and people could not get value for their money, the money did not have value anymore. Because money works as a store. Money is a store. It's supposed to serve as a store of value of wealth. But at the end of the day, when the money keeps eroding, when the value keeps eroding, then it's of no use anymore. Then people want to keep their money in foreign currencies. They don't want to keep it in the naira anymore because the naira is not serving, it's not stable, it's unstable. So you have so much of capital that should be in our economy, you have it going outside because people rather keep their money in foreign exchange than keep it in naira because the naira is unstable, they keep devaluing it every other day. What I was talking about the foreign brain drain, the brain drain was that because people could not meet their obligations, standard of living fell. TV prices went up, refrigerators, cars, house rents, and the salaries had not followed that pattern. It didn't go at parity with the inflation. So people could not afford, people who were in the middle class were generally being wiped out from the middle class and becoming poverty-stricken. So they had no choice, since they were professionals, they had no choice but to go and use their degrees abroad and make foreign exchange. And then that's when you had brain drain, and we're still having it up to today because people still feel that the naira is not stable and the government wants to continue to devalue the currency further.
You're not getting my argument. I'm saying that there's nothing wrong with it if the money is sent back to the country. It helps. It kind of complements the earnings from oil. That's what I'm saying. That's what other countries do, no? You don't agree with that?
I don't agree with that.
Why?
I feel if you have a very strong currency, most countries abroad, I think it's a leadership problem again. If you look at the problem of capital flight in African countries, you will see that 40% of the wealth in Africa are kept in foreign accounts, and that helps their own economy. There was a law in London many years ago where they said their citizens could not have foreign accounts. There was a time those policies were put in place here too in Nigeria during the Buhari Diagmo regime. You might call it a kind of mercantile system. But when our leaders keep on taking money out, you've had situations where governors have been taking a lot of their allocations, federal allocations, out of the country. And some of them have been arrested at a point in time. By going to buy a lot of money, carry a lot of naira to the foreign exchange market, further devalues the currency. It weakens the currency.
Are we saying two different things? Capital flight.
It's capital flight.
It's different from the brain drain from some professional or some skilled person who had gone to greener pastures, to Canada, to the USA, to Britain, to
Why do you want to go to greener pastures when you can make your own country the paradise itself?
Why what?
Why would you like to go to greener pastures?
Yes.
Where you'll be discriminated against and you'll be doing odd jobs?
It's a choice. It's an economic choice.
I think it's not an economic choice. It's because there
are far too many skilled people in this country. Far too many skilled people in this country.
It was forced on them.
More lawyers
in this country
than Britain.
They have no choice but to go abroad.
Oh, it's